Rhaenyra just sent a mother to kill her own son. And the son has no idea she's coming. That's the gut punch setup House of the Dragon Season 3 hands us heading into Episode 7, and if the trailer is anything to go by, this penultimate episode is about to light the entire board on fire. Criston Cole is dead. Corlys Velaryon is a prisoner. The realm is unraveling. And now Aemond Targaryen, scarred, sidelined, and furious, is finally stepping back into the war with a Valyrian steel sword in his hand and a warning on his lips. A new dawn is coming. But whose dawn? Because sitting right beside him, whispering into his ear, is a woman who may be centuries older than she looks, guiding him toward a fate none of us can predict. This is everything we know, everything we can piece together, and everything the books tell us about where this is all headed. The Episode 7 trailer opens exactly where you'd want it to. Harrenhal. Blade in hand, Aemond Targaryen shirtless and training with Blackfyre like a man who has something to prove. And he does. After spending the back half of this season recovering from his injuries and watching his side lose ground without him, Aemond is done sitting on the sidelines. His line about a new dawn coming isn't just a throwaway piece of trailer bravado, it's a thesis statement for the rest of the season. This is a character who has spent his whole life being the second son, the overlooked one, the guy standing in Aegon's shadow even after Aegon supposedly died and came back wrong. Aemond has always wanted to be the one who decides how this war ends. And now, physically healed and armed with the same sword that made Demon Blackfyre a legend centuries ago, he finally has the chance. What makes this scarier than a simple training montage is who's standing next to him while he does it. Alys Rivers has spent the last several episodes quietly becoming the most dangerous person at Harrenhal, and she's not just tending Aemond's wounds anymore, she's shaping his decisions. Last episode, she revealed those ancient dragon eggs to him, the ones connected to Rhaenyra Targaryen and possibly, if the fan theory holds up, connected to Alicent's own hidden identity as a centuries-old survivor of a stolen clutch. Now she's positioned herself as the person Aemond trusts most in the world, which means whatever Aemond does next isn't purely his own decision anymore. It's hers too, and that should worry everyone, including his own mother. Here's where the trailer gets genuinely uncomfortable. Rhaenyra only agreed to loosen Alicent and Helena's confinement after Alicent revealed that Helena is a dreamer, someone who has seen visions of Aemond's death. That single piece of information became Rhaenyra's leverage. She didn't just want information, she wanted Alicent to become the weapon. The deal is simple and horrifying. Alicent goes to Harrenhal, finds her son, and delivers him to his death, and in exchange, she and Helena get their freedom back. The trailer confirms Alicent actually makes the trip, and the reunion between mother and son happens, with Aemond greeting her as Mother, completely unaware of why she's really there. But here's the twist that changes everything. Alys Rivers sees straight through Alicent's act. She tells Aemond there's a fog surrounding his mother, that she's come to do him harm. Whatever magic or intuition Alys is working with, it's enough to put Aemond immediately on guard against the one person he might have let his defenses down for. So now we've got 3 people in one room, each playing a different game. Alicent, torn between loyalty to the son she raised and the promise she made to save her daughter. Aemond, caught between the mother he still calls mother and the woman who just told him not to trust her. And Alys, who benefits the most if this whole reunion falls apart in blood. If the show follows the tension the trailer is building, this scene alone could define the entire back half of the season, because whatever Alicent chooses here either saves Helena or costs her everything. Episode 6 ended on a gut punch nobody saw coming this fast. The Sea Snake himself, Corlys Velaryon, ambushed and captured by Ormond Hightower's forces. Collapsing before the screen even confirmed whether he was alive. That uncertainty is exactly the kind of cliffhanger this show loves to sit on, and Episode 7 is expected to finally answer the question everyone's been asking since. Is Corlys dead, or is he now the single most valuable hostage in this entire war? Because if he's alive, Ormond suddenly holds one of the most powerful bargaining chips imaginable, a man whose sons, Alan and Adam, both ride dragons and both would presumably do almost anything to get him back. If he's dead, the Velaryon fleet and the 2 dragon-riding sons lose the man who built their entire legacy, and the fallout could push Alan and Adam toward a far more aggressive stance than Rhaenyra has wanted from them so far. Either way, this isn't a storyline the show can afford to leave hanging much longer. And with only 2 episodes left in the season, Episode 7 almost has to deliver the answer. away from Harrenhal and the battlefield. The trailer gives us a tense exchange between Rhaenyra and Helaena, with Rhaenyra reminding her sister-in-law that their relationship now comes with the weight of royal command attached to it. That's not a friendly conversation. That's a queen reminding a prisoner exactly who's in charge, even as she's using that same prisoner's family to bait her own stepson into a trap. It's a reminder of just how far Rhaenyra has drifted from the woman who once hesitated to burn a town out of respect for the small folk. The trailer also gives us Aemond Velaryon approaching Rhaenyra with what's described as a cryptic warning, immediately followed by a brief, ominous glimpse of Sheepstealer in the shadows. Given everything simmering in King's Landing already, the gold-cloaked desertions, the assassins in Baratheon armor, the growing sense that Rhaenyra can't actually control her own city anymore, whatever warning Aemond is bringing likely isn't good news. If Sheepstealer's appearance in this context means Rhaenyra Targaryen is about to re-enter the story in a bigger way, that could shift the balance of dragons in this war in ways nobody's accounted for yet. The trailer closes on the green side of the board, and it's not subtle about what's coming. Gwaine Hightower reunites with Aemond and Daeron at Tumbleton, bringing the Baratheon assassination plot fallout full circle after Gwaine's cousin Aerion was among those slaughtered trying to kill Daeron last episode. Aemond now holds the advantage, a captured Corlys, a fortified market town, and a growing sense among the small folk that Rhaenyra can't even secure her own capital, let alone win a war. But the trailer specifically raises the question of how long that confidence can actually hold, which suggests Episode 7 isn't just going to let the Greens coast. The final shots of the preview show armies marching in formation, the kind of imagery that usually means one thing this deep into a season. The first battle of Tumbleton is close, maybe closer than anyone expected. Add in the lingering, unresolved threads with Ulf and Hugh, both dragon riders who've been quietly pushed toward switching sides for episodes now. And you've got every ingredient in place for the penultimate episode to detonate everything the season has been building since the premiere. 2 episodes left. A captured sea snake, a mother sent to kill her son, and a new dawn that might burn everyone who's standing underneath it. Now let's talk about where all of this actually leads if the show sticks anywhere close to Fire and Blood, because the source material gives us some serious hints about what these next 2 episodes are building toward, even if the show has already proven it loves to bend the details. In the book, the fallout from Criston Cole's death at the Battle of the King's Road, which is essentially what we just watched play out as the Butcher's Ball, triggers a chain reaction across the Riverlands and eventually pulls Aemond back into direct command of the Hightower forces. That lines up almost perfectly with what the trailer is showing us, Aemond stepping back into the war right as the Green Army's momentum starts wobbling without a clear military leader. Criston is gone, Aemond is competent but not a dragon, and the Greens desperately need something that can match Rhaenyra's remaining dragons in the sky. Aemond and Vhagar are that answer, assuming he actually gets his hands back on his dragon, which is a whole separate question the show has been dangling since Alys convinced him Vhagar's disappearance was actually protecting him. If Aemond's comeback in Episode 7 is purely a ground-level moment, training with Blackfyre, reconnecting with his mother, that's one thing. But if this episode ends with him actively hunting for Vhagar again, that changes the entire shape of the war, because right now Rhaenyra effectively controls the skies. Take that away, and everything Rhaenyra has built her strategy around collapses. Then there's Alicent. And I want to go a little deeper into what the book says happens to her around this point in the timeline, because it's genuinely one of the more tragic threads in the entire Dance of the Dragons. In Fire and Blood, Alicent's story after this stretch of the war becomes increasingly isolated. She loses political relevance, she's sidelined by both sides, and by the time the war actually ends, she's a broken, mostly forgotten figure watching the family she sacrificed everything for tear itself apart without her having any say in it. The show has been building toward something similar, but the twist this season is giving her one final moment of agency, the choice Rhaenyra is forcing on her at Harrenhal. Does she warn Aemond and blow her only chance at freeing Helaena? Or does she go through with betraying her own son to save her daughter? Neither option is really a win for Alicent. If she saves Aemond, she's back to being Rhaenyra's prisoner with no leverage left to bargain with. If she doesn't, she's traded one child's life for another's freedom, which is exactly the kind of impossible choice this show has built her entire arc around since Season 1, when she was forced to choose between her father's ambitions and her friendship with Rhaenyra. History has a way of repeating itself for Alicent, and it's never kind to her. Now, the Alys Rivers theory deserves another look here too, because Episode 7 might actually give us more to work with. If you remember, my read on Alys is that she could secretly be Alyssa Farman, Rhaena Targaryen's former lover from the book who stole 3 of Dreamfire's dragon eggs and vanished trying to sail the Sunset Sea, only for those eggs to resurface over 250 years later as the ones gifted to Daenerys Targaryen. If that theory holds any water, then everything Alys is doing right now at Harrenhal makes a disturbing amount of sense. She's not just protecting Aemond out of loyalty or affection. She's positioning him as her next investment, someone she can shape and guide the same way she may have once tried to shape her own destiny centuries ago. Her warning to Aemond about the fog surrounding Alicent isn't necessarily about protecting him from harm. It might be about protecting her own influence over him. A grieving, reconciled Aemond who trusts his mother again is a lot harder to manipulate than an angry, isolated one who only trusts the strange woman who saved his life and handed him ancient dragon eggs. Watch closely for how Alys reacts if Alicent and Aemond actually manage a real moment of connection in this episode, because if Alys tries to interrupt or undercut it, that's about as close to confirmation as we're going to get, that her intentions aren't purely protective. There's also Ulf and Hugh to think about, because both of these dragon riders have been quietly primed for a betrayal that hasn't happened yet, and the clock is running out on the season to pay that off. Ulf's humiliation in the streets of King's Landing was witnessed by a Hightower spy, which means Ormond's people almost certainly know he's a pressure point ready to crack. Hugh, meanwhile, is stuck between a wife who wants nothing to do with him and a queen who's treated him as disposable since the moment she needed a rider more than she needed to actually take care of him. Neither man has a single strong reason left to stay loyal to Rhaenyra, and the show has spent multiple episodes making sure we understand exactly why. If Episode 7 or the finale doesn't address this thread directly, it'll be one of the biggest wasted setups of the season. But given how much attention the show has put into their resentment, I'd bet at least one of them makes a move before this season ends. And if it happens during the battle the trailer is teasing at Tumbleton, that could be one of the biggest twists of the year. A dragon flipping sides mid-fight, and we can't ignore what this means for Baela and Rhaena either. Baela's relationship with Alan adds a personal complication to a war that's already tearing families apart. And if Corlys really is dead or dying in green custody, that puts Alan in an extremely difficult position, torn between grief, revenge, and whatever he's building with Baela. Rhaena, meanwhile, is sitting on sheepstealer information that Daemon already exposed to the enemy. And if that glimpse of sheepstealer in the trailer means she's being pulled back into the war more directly, Jane Eyre's warning about this being her last chance suggests the veil isn't going to protect her much longer. The pieces are all on the board, dragons on every side, personal grudges bleeding into political decisions, and 2 episodes left to detonate all of it. Here's the thing that makes Episode 7 genuinely nerve-wracking to predict. This show has consistently used its penultimate episodes to set the pieces in motion right before the finale delivers the actual devastation, which means Episode 7 might feel less like a climax and more like the calm right before everything breaks. But based on what the trailer is showing us, marching armies, a mother sent to kill her son, a captured sea snake whose fate is still unknown, and Aemond finally back on his feet with a dangerous woman in his ear, calm might not be the right word for any of this. Whatever happens, the pieces Rhaenyra and the Greens have both been setting up all season are about to collide, and there's a real chance not everyone currently alive on this board makes it to the finale. Let's shift back to King's Landing for a second, because while all the dragon drama is happening up at Harrenhal and Tumbleton, the capital itself might be the thing that decides how this entire war ends, and Episode 7 has a lot of loose threads left to deal with there. Rhaenyra is sitting on a throne that's cutting her, literally. The same curse that marked Viserys and Maegor before her, and symbolically, in the sense that the city she's supposed to be ruling is falling apart underneath her while she's distracted managing prisoners, assassins, and a war she didn't ask to fight this hard for. The Gold Cloaks have deserted in droves, the streets are lawless, and every noble house watching from the sidelines is taking notes on whether Rhaenyra can actually hold her own capital together. That's the exact kind of instability Ormond Hightower wants. And it's worth remembering that his entire strategy up to this point hasn't been about winning battles outright. It's been about making Rhaenyra look weak enough that the great houses start reconsidering their allegiances. If Episode 7 shows any further erosion of order in King's Landing, whether that's more assassinations, more desertions, or open rioting, that's not filler. That's Ormond's plan working exactly as intended. And it puts pressure on Rhaenyra to make a decision she's been avoiding all season. whether to answer chaos with mercy or with fire, which brings us to Mysaria, because her storyline has quietly become one of the most dangerous subplots running through this entire season. She lied to Rhaenyra's face about knowing Helaena was pregnant, and we already saw her move to have that maid, the one who helped Alicent's escape attempt, silently dealt with to tie up loose ends. That's not the behavior of someone who's fully loyal to her queen anymore. That's the behavior of someone protecting herself first, and Rhaenyra a distant second. If Mysaria's been playing her own game this whole time, gathering leverage, eliminating witnesses, keeping secrets even from the one person she's supposed to serve, then episode 7 or the finale could be building toward a moment where that betrayal finally surfaces. And given how much Rhaenyra already leans on Mysaria for information and dirty work, losing her, or discovering she can't be trusted, would strip away one of the only tools Rhaenyra has left to manage the city from the shadows. Keep an eye on how the show frames Mysaria in this next episode, because if she gets even one more scene where she's clearly acting outside Rhaenyra's knowledge, that's the show telling us this threat is about to pay off before the season ends. Now here's where I want to bring in the Game of Thrones connections, because this show has been quietly rhyming with its predecessor in ways that go deeper than just shared lore. Think about the position Rhaenyra is in right now, a ruler who took the throne through claim and conviction, immediately finding that holding a city is a completely different challenge than winning a crown. That's almost a direct echo of what happened to Daenerys Targaryen generations later. Someone who believed her claim and her dragons were enough to secure loyalty, only to discover that small folk don't care about prophecy. They care about food, safety, and whether the streets are safe to walk at night. Rhaenyra cutting herself on the throne, hesitating over whether to burn Tumbleton, wrestling with the weight of what Aegon the Conqueror's legacy actually demands of her. All of that is the show setting up the same central question Game of Thrones eventually asked about Daenerys herself. Is claiming the throne through fire and blood sustainable, or does it inevitably curdle into tyranny the moment the ruler stops being seen as a savior and starts being seen as a threat? The show hasn't answered that question yet for Rhaenyra, but every episode this season has been quietly building the case both ways. And episode 7 is likely to push that tension even further, especially if Rhaenyra ends up making a call about Tumbleton, or about Aemond that she can't walk. Back there's also a direct parallel worth mentioning between Alicent's position, right? Now and Cersei Lannister's arc across Game of Thrones. Both women spent years believing that protecting their children justified almost anything. Manipulation, political maneuvering, outright cruelty, and both eventually found themselves trapped by the very children they thought they were protecting. Cersei watched Joffrey become a monster she couldn't control, and Tommen slip away from her entirely. Alicent is now being forced to choose between two of her own children, using one to potentially destroy the other, all under the manipulation of a queen who used to be her closest friend. The show clearly wants us feeling the weight of that irony, that Alicent's entire life has been defined by trying to secure her children's futures, and here she is at what might be the lowest point of that mission, being used as a weapon against her own son. If episode 7 leans into that parallel even harder, don't be surprised if Alicent's arc starts trending toward the same kind of quiet,